I need to tell you about something that happened to me 15 years ago. Something I've never really been able to shake, no matter how much time passes or how many ordinary, happy Christmases I've experienced since. It was December 2008, and I'd been working as a professional Santa for about 3 years at that point. I don't mean the mall Santa gig, though I'd done that too. I mean the kind where you get hired for private events, corporate parties, hospital visits. The pay was decent, and honestly, I loved it. There's something genuinely fulfilling about making kids smile, about being part of their Christmas magic, even if it's just for a few minutes. That year, my agency got a request I'd never encountered before. A children's hospital, a major one in the city, wanted a Santa to visit their burn ward, specifically the pediatric burn unit. I remember sitting in my apartment when I got the call, and I remember the long pause I took before saying yes. I'd visited hospitals before, sure. I'd sat with sick kids, kids with cancer, kids who were spending Christmas hooked up to machines. It was hard, emotionally draining, but also deeply meaningful. Those visits mattered. But a burn ward? That felt different. That felt heavier. Still, I said yes. How could I not? The hospital gave me a whole briefing before the visit. They explained the protocols, the sensitivities, what to expect. They told me that some of the children had been through unimaginable trauma. House fires, accidents, abuse cases that I didn't want to think too hard about. They warned me that some of the injuries would be severe, that some children would be bandaged extensively, that I needed to be prepared for that. They emphasized that I should focus on normalcy, on bringing a moment of joy, on not reacting to what I saw. I thought I was prepared. I really did. The day of the visit, I arrived early to get into costume in a private room they'd set aside. I remember looking at myself in the mirror. Full Santa regalia, perfect white beard, rosy cheeks courtesy of good makeup, and giving myself a little pep talk. You've got this. Just be Santa. Just be present. Give these kids a good memory. The burn ward was on the 4th floor. The moment I stepped out of the elevator, the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just a hospital smell, that antiseptic, sterilized air. It was something else, something heavier. The lighting seemed dimmer, the hallways quieter. There was a weight to the place, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. A nurse named Patricia met me at the nurse's station. She was probably in her 50s, with kind eyes that had clearly seen too much. She smiled warmly, but I could see the exhaustion around the edges. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice soft. "The kids have been so excited. We told them Santa was coming, and you should have seen their faces light up. That made me feel better. That's why I was here." We started in the common room, where a few of the more mobile children had gathered. These were kids who could walk, who weren't in critical condition, though many still bore visible signs of their injuries. Scarring on their arms, bandages on their hands, one little girl with a compression mask covering half her face. I sat in a big chair they'd brought in, and one by one they came to sit with me. I remember their names. Jason wanted a remote control car. Emma wanted art supplies. Marcus wanted his dog to visit him. Normal kid things. Beautiful, normal kid things. I listened. I laughed. I promised to do my very best to make their wishes come true. Some of them hugged me. Some were shy. All of them were braver than I could ever be. After about an hour in the common room, Patricia approached me again. "There are a few children who couldn't come out to see you," she said carefully. "Would you be willing to visit them in their rooms? Some of them are in isolation or can't be moved because of their treatments." "Of course," I said. "Absolutely." And that's how it started. We went room by room. Each visit was brief but intense. I met a boy who'd been burned over 60% of his body, lying in a specialized bed, who could barely speak but whose eyes followed me the entire time. I met a little girl who'd lost both her hands in an accident and who asked me, with heartbreaking earnestness, if I could bring her mittens for Christmas because she got cold. I met a teenager who tried to act too cool for Santa but who I could tell appreciated the normalcy of the visit. And then we came to room 408. Patricia paused outside the door, her hand on the handle. She turned to me, and her expression was different, more serious, almost apologetic. "This is Michael," she said quietly. "He's 7. He's been here for 3 months. House fire. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He's been through a lot, more than most. He doesn't speak much anymore, but his therapist thought a visit from Santa might help. Just be gentle. He's very fragile emotionally and physically. I nodded, my chest already tightening. I understand. She opened the door. The room was dim, just a single lamp in the corner providing a soft glow. The blinds were drawn. There was medical equipment everywhere. Monitors beeping softly and four-stand, a specialized bed with what looked like a tent structure over it to keep the sheets from touching the patient. And in that bed was a small figure. Michael. Even in the low light, even with my preparation, I wasn't ready. He was wrapped almost entirely in bandages. White gauze covered his arms, his legs, his torso. His face was visible, but it was badly scarred. Angry red and pink patches of healing skin, areas that were still raw, one ear that was partially missing. His hair was patchy, burned away in places. But his eyes, God, his eyes were so alive, so aware. They locked onto me the moment I stepped into the room. "Hey, Michael," I said, keeping my voice warm and gentle, channeling every ounce of Santa energy I had. "I heard you've been a very brave boy this year. I thought I'd come by to see you myself." He didn't respond. He just stared at me with those huge, dark eyes. Patricia whispered something to a nurse who'd been sitting in the corner. I hadn't even noticed her at first, and they both stepped out into the hallway, giving us privacy but staying close. I could see them through the small window in the door. I moved closer to the bed, slowly, making sure my body language was non-threatening and calm. I pulled up a small chair and sat down next to him. "You know," I continued, "the North Pole has been pretty busy this year. Lots of nice kids on my list. But I wanted to make sure I visited the bravest ones personally. And I heard you're one of the bravest." Still nothing. But he hadn't looked away from me. Not once. "Is there anything special you'd like for Christmas?" I asked. "Anything at all?" For a long moment, there was only silence. The beeping of the monitors. The faint hum of the hospital ventilation system. The distant sound of someone walking down the hallway outside. And then, slowly, Michael moved. Clearly hurt him. I could see it in the way his body tensed, in the tiny grimace that crossed his face. But he pushed himself up slightly, leaning toward me. His bandaged hands gripped the edge of the specialized bedding. My instinct was to tell him not to strain himself, to lie back down, but something stopped me. There was an intensity in his gaze, a determination. He wanted to tell me something. He needed to. I leaned in closer, bringing my ear near to him, because his voice would be quiet. I was prepared for a whispered wish. Toy. A game. Maybe something heartbreaking like, "I want to go home," or "I want it to stop hurting." Michael's face was inches from mine now. I could hear his breathing, raspy and labored. I could smell the medicinal ointment on his bandages. I could feel the heat radiating from his damaged skin. And then he spoke. One word. Just one single word. Whispered directly into my ear. So quiet I almost didn't hear it. "Skin." I froze. Everything in me went cold. It wasn't what he said, though that was disturbing enough. It was how he said it. There was no emotion in his voice. No inflection. No childlike quality. It was flat. Empty. Dead. "Skin." I pulled back slowly, trying to keep my expression neutral, trying to stay in character, but I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. Michael was staring at me, his eyes completely unblinking, his face expressionless. And then something else happened, something I still can't fully explain. As I looked at him, as our eyes met in that dim room with only the sound of medical equipment between us, I could have sworn I saw something flicker across his face. Not an expression exactly, more like a shadow, like something was moving beneath the surface of his scarred skin, rippling under the damaged tissue. I blinked, and it was gone. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. The dim lamp, the exhaustion, the emotional weight of the day. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been there, just for a moment. Something that had been looking out at me through Michael's eyes. I'll see what I can do, buddy," I managed, my voice tight and unnatural even to my own ears. He didn't respond. He just kept staring. And then, just as slowly as he'd sat up, he laid back down, his gaze finally breaking from mine to stare up at the ceiling. But before he settled completely, I heard it again. That same word, but quieter this time, almost like he was talking to himself. Skin. And then again, even softer. Skin. Like a mantra, like a prayer, like the only word he had left. I stood up, my legs feeling unsteady. I made myself smile, made myself wave, made myself say something about seeing him on Christmas Eve before I backed toward the door. My hand fumbled for the handle. I couldn't get out of that room fast enough. The moment I stepped into the hallway, Patricia was there. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice hopeful. I opened my mouth, then closed it. What was I supposed to say? That a burned child had just asked Santa for skin? That it was the most disturbing thing I'd ever experienced? That I'd seen something impossible moving beneath his damaged flesh? "He spoke," I said finally. "He asked for something." "He did." Patricia's face lit up. "That's wonderful. He hasn't spoken in weeks. What did he ask for?" I looked back through the window at Michael, who was still staring at the ceiling, completely motionless. As I watched, his lips moved again, forming that same word silently. "Skin," I said quietly. "He asked for skin." Patricia's smile faded instantly. For a moment, she just looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Recognition, sadness, maybe even fear. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, Michael." She glanced through the window at the boy, and her expression became something I couldn't quite read. There was grief there, certainly, but also something else. Something that made my stomach turn. Has he said that before?" I asked. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Every night," she said. "When he has nightmares, when he wakes up crying. That's all he says. Just that one word over and over. The psychiatrist thinks it's a trauma response. His body trying to process what happened, what he lost." She paused. "The fire, it was bad. Very bad. He was trapped in his bedroom for almost 20 minutes before the firefighters could reach him. His mother and sister didn't make it out. The weight of that information settled over me like a physical thing. This child had not only lost his skin, his physical wholeness, but also his family. He'd been burned alive while his mother and sister died somewhere else in that house, and he'd survived only to wake up to a reality where everything he'd known was gone. "I'm sorry," I said, though the words felt hollow and inadequate. "I didn't know." "Most people don't," Patricia replied. "His case file is extensive. There were some complications early on. Infections, failed grafts. He's been through more surgeries than most adults will have in their entire lives." She looked back through the window one more time. "Some of the night shift nurses say he talks in his sleep. Not just that one word. Full conversations. But when they listen closely, they realize he's not talking to them. He's talking to someone else. Someone who isn't there." A chill ran down my spine. "Who?" Patricia met my eyes, and in that moment, I saw that she was just as disturbed as I was, that she'd been carrying this burden for months. "His mother," she whispered. "He's asking her for skin. He's asking her to give him his skin back." I don't remember much of what happened after that. I finished the rest of my visits in a complete daze, moving from room to room on autopilot. I smiled and laughed and listened to other children, but part of me was still in room 408, still hearing that single word whispered in my ear, still seeing that impossible rippling movement beneath damaged flesh. When I finally left the hospital, it was dark outside. December darkness, cold and complete. I sat in my car in the parking garage for a long time, still in my Santa suit, just staring at the concrete wall in front of me. The fake beard itched. The padding around my stomach felt constrictive, suffocating. I couldn't get Michael's face out of my mind. Those eyes, that empty, hollow voice. Skin. I tried to rationalize what I'd experienced. A traumatized child asking for the one thing he'd lost. Nothing supernatural about that. Nothing truly disturbing beyond the obvious tragedy of the situation. The shadow I'd seen moving beneath his skin, exhaustion, tricks of the light, my own imagination filling in details that weren't there. But I couldn't shake it. Something about that moment felt wrong on a level I couldn't articulate. It wasn't just sadness or horror at what the child had endured. It was something else. Something that made my lizard brain scream at me to run, to get away, to never go back. I called my agency the next day and told them I needed a break. I didn't tell them why, just that I needed time off. The woman I spoke with was understanding. She probably thought I was burned out, no pun intended. She told me to take all the time I needed, that there would be work for me when I was ready to come back. I didn't wear the Santa suit for 2 years after that. During those 2 years, I tried to forget about Michael. I threw myself into other work, other aspects of my life. But every December, as Christmas approached, I would think about him. I would wonder if he was still in that hospital, still wrapped in bandages, still whispering that single word to the darkness. I tried to look him up once, about a year after my visit. I called the hospital, asked about him, said I was the Santa who'd visited and wanted to know how he was doing. They couldn't give me specific information due to privacy laws, but the woman on the phone went quiet when I mentioned his name. Michael, she repeated slowly. From the burn ward. Yes, I said. I visited him in December 2008. Room 408. I just wanted to know if he's okay. If he's... I'm sorry, she interrupted, her voice strange and strained. I can't discuss patient information. But, sir, are you sure about the room number? Yes, I said. 408. Why? Another long pause. That room has been closed since January 2009, she said finally. There was an incident. It's not in use anymore. My blood went cold. What kind of incident? I really can't say. I'm sorry. HIPAA regulations. But if you're looking for information about a specific patient, you might want to speak with. I hung up before she could finish. I never called back. I never tried to find out what happened. I think on some level I didn't want to know. I wanted to believe that Michael had gotten better, had gone home, had found some kind of peace. But the way that woman's voice had changed when I mentioned room 408, I knew that wasn't the case. It wasn't until 3 years ago that I got any kind of answer, and it came from the most unexpected place. I was working a corporate Christmas party. I'd started doing Santa gigs again by then, though I still refused hospital visits, when a woman approached me during my break. She was probably in her 60s, well-dressed, with a name tag that said she was from some pharmaceutical company. But there was something familiar about her face. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I hope this isn't inappropriate, but were you working as a Santa back in 2008? At City General Hospital?" I felt my stomach drop. "Yes," I managed. "How did you?" "I was one of the nurses there. Patricia. I don't know if you remember me." I remembered. Of course I remembered. "You visited the burn ward," she continued. "You met a boy named Michael." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Patricia looked around, making sure no one was close enough to overhear. Then she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I need you to know something," she said. "Something I've never told anyone, because I didn't think anyone would believe me. But I saw your face that day, when you came out of his room. I saw that you felt it too, that something was wrong, not just sad or tragic. Wrong. What happened to him?" I asked. Patricia's eyes were haunted. "He died 3 weeks after your visit. On Christmas Eve, actually. The official cause was organ failure, complications from his injuries. But that's not the whole truth." "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "The night he died, I was working the late shift. I heard screaming coming from his room around 2 a.m. Not just his screaming, multiple voices. I ran in, and..." She trailed off, her hands shaking slightly. "He was sitting up in bed, completely awake, his eyes wide open, and he was pulling at his bandages, tearing them off. Underneath, his skin was moving, writhing, like there were things beneath it trying to get out. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The Santa suit suddenly felt like it was crushing me. I tried to stop him," Patricia continued, "but he was strong. impossibly strong for a child in his condition. He kept screaming that one word, over and over. Skin, skin, skin. And then he looked at me and it wasn't him anymore. It was someone else looking out through his eyes. Something else. What happened then? I whispered. He collapsed, just fell back onto the bed. By the time we got him stabilized, he was gone. But before he died, he said one more thing. He said, "She gave it back. Mommy gave it back." We stood there in silence, in the middle of that cheerful corporate Christmas party, with festive music playing and people laughing and the world continuing on like nothing was wrong. "They closed room 408 after that," Patricia said. "Claimed it was for renovations, but that wasn't true. The other nurses started reporting things. Sounds coming from inside when it was empty. The smell of burning flesh. Shadows moving across the window from inside a locked room. They sealed it off eventually. Officially, it's storage now. But no one goes in there." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Patricia met my eyes. "Because you saw it too. In that moment when you were with him, you saw something. I could tell. And I needed you to know that you weren't crazy. That it was real. Whatever it was." She walked away after that, disappearing back into the crowd of corporate employees with their holiday drinks and their festive cheer. I never saw her again. I still work as Santa. I still do private events and parties. I still love bringing joy to children. Still believe in the magic of Christmas despite everything. But I never take hospital assignments. Ever. When my agency asks, I tell them I have personal reasons, and they've stopped pushing. Because every time I think about putting on that suit and visiting sick kids, I'm back in room 408. I'm back in that dim space with the beeping monitors and the smell of medicinal ointment. I'm leaning in close to a bandaged child who's been through unimaginable trauma. And I'm hearing it again. That one word, whispered in a voice that wasn't quite human. Empty, hollow, dead, skin. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm trying to fall asleep and the world is quiet and dark, I can still feel it. That moment when our faces were inches apart. That moment when I saw something ripple beneath his damaged flesh. That moment when I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was looking at something that shouldn't exist. Something that was wearing Michael like a suit, desperately trying to hold itself together, asking Santa, asking anyone, for the one thing that might make it whole again. Skin. If you enjoyed these stories and want more eerie encounters, strange moments, and unsettling confessions, go ahead and like this video. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay curious.